Hello and welcome to another episode of Power On Podcast 00Status. I'm one of your hosts, Taylor, Motivating 553, Writing Virtue, all those other fun titles and whatnot. With me is my co-host, Mr. Sushi B. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. It's good to see you again, Agent 553.
Right.
That was supposed to be my really poor attempt at talking like Teehee.
Oh boy.
Pretty bad. Not feeling that one today.
That was swing and a miss. Swing and a miss.
Yeah. Big whiff.
That's all right. Much like this movie, big whiff. But yeah, how you doing? How you doing? You doing good? You said.
I'm doing pretty good. Yeah, okay. I'm ready for this one. I think we kind of talked off air a little bit, and my lack of disdain for this film.
I wonder if it's just because you're numb to it.
Maybe because it was on TV a lot, like when I used to see it, and it's just sort of, it's definitely I can go do 50 other things and this can just be on the background. Oh, there's an explosion. Look for a second. Okay, back to whatever I was doing.
Right. Yeah.
Hollywood fodder.
That's pretty much what this movie is. Yeah. And
the end.
Yep, pretty much. Let's wrap it up.
Yeah, right. So what's your pick for next?
I
guess it's my pick.
Yeah. But I'd sent you this email about it as well, that because I watched the behind the scenes. I actually had to stop watching them because they were so boring and nothing was going on. And they were just talking about, and one of them was like, from script to screen. And then it was just, they were just talking, hey, these are the people who write the script, and this is what they do. They go to a coffee shop and they go to different coffee shops, and then they come up with ideas and they meet together at a pub. And I'm just, this is stupid, much like this movie.
It's funny. I don't recall exactly what you emailed to me, but you basically said something to the effect of, that was not only a waste of time, it was so uninformative of the actual, because the other ones you had mentioned do talk about, okay, character casting and adapting the book. And I know there's not necessarily a book this is adapted from, but just they had elements that linked some of the movie set pieces, or the casting choices, as I said, or so forth. It just kind of at least gave you some of the insight as to what the mindset was to that. Whereas you said this basically didn't have, it was just, we're making a Bond movie.
Yeah, they kind of started to about 15 minutes in, but by that point I tapped out. It was, they had a little bit with Lee Tamahori, the director, and it was just kind of like, okay, cool, but it was such like fluff.
Right.
That I was like, no, this is, it felt like one of those things you turn on in middle school as hey, if you're interested in movies, maybe, you might see something here that'll
basic knowledge of the process.
Right.
What was my comment to you? I think I just said something, but that's because nobody wanted to be associated with it.
Yeah. It's just, yeah. So, but yeah, like you slightly touched on there. I myself, I really don't remember like first memories of this movie. I just vaguely recall seeing at some point in high school, and not even at like the movie theater, because it came out 2002. 2000.
Yep,
yeah, so it came out 2002. So that's middle of high school for me, and I didn't see it until shortly before either my junior or senior year or something. So I was just like, and it didn't impress me then, and it doesn't impress me now.
Yep. Well, you maybe if you had seen some of these bombastic set pieces on the big screen, maybe you'd have a different opinion.
No.
At least that was probably their thought.
That's probably their thought.
That's probably, honestly, this movie, and I alluded to something that we'll get to shortly in an email to you. This movie tried really hard. if nothing else, they really, really wanted to make something, whatever their vision was. I don't think we can maybe pinpoint what that vision is exactly, but they wanted to make something. They didn't know what it was, but they wanted to make something memorable or something enjoyable, but they wanted to make something.
Well,
What did you say to you? Said something back to me. It certainly is a movie.
that, but I will say this: there was something in what I did watch of those behind the scene things that probably alludes to why the this movie in particular, and part of the Brosnan run in general, they're having a hard time establishing what is Bond at this point.
Mhm.
The curtain of the Soviets has fallen. Berlin Wall's gone down.
Mhm.
It's the 90s into 2000s, and they're just sort of lost on what to do with a British spy at this point.
That's fair.
Like, and so that's what this movie kind of feels like. It's like, what do we got going on?
Right.
Oh, there's conflict diamonds. Those are bad. Well, that's a little too dark. Let's not go that route.
Right.
Well, then we still got the demilitarized zone. Okay, sure. Let's run with that.
Isn't it kind of amusing that they went to as many communist countries as they possibly could in this movie?
Right.
Us maybe barring Vietnam being maybe the only other well-known communist country, and I guess China, but just trying to, it seemed like they're trying to shoehorn, these are the bad guys.
Right. Yeah. Goodness
And they already had
gracious.
kind of tackled China to some degree in Tomorrow Never Dies, and
Mhm.
Vietnam actually. So
Mhm.
there you go. There's your other.
Yeah. So that, yeah,
Already shoehorned them in.
they were adrift on what to really kind of, and I get that,
Mhm.
your big bad boogeyman has quote unquote been vanquished. So
Right.
now what do you kind of go for? And instead
Right.
of, dealing with simple cocaine smuggling, you decide to go batshit loop-de-loop, but not in the wacky, fun way of Moonraker, but more
Right.
in more satellites of doom. So
That's what I mean. I think they just tried to put as much stuff as they possibly could in. It's weird. It's maybe you're right. Maybe as you watch that making of piece, they really had no idea what a fifth film would be. So they just thought better just put this all in now, because this movie is all over the place.
yeah,
And
and
it's long. It's a long movie.
well, I mean,
It doesn't
it just
feel long, but it is long.
yeah, it's not that much different than a lot of the run times for Bond movies.
Mm-hmm.
2 hours 15. Well, it's less than that. It's like 2 hours 10 minutes or so.
Mm-hmm.
2 hours 11. But I would say this. Yeah, it pacing wise, it doesn't feel too bad. But I
No.
was having like, I don't know, just spastic flashbacks to The World's Not Enough
Mm.
for some reason. I was just like, I was waiting for that part where he was escaping from the prison mine
Mm-hmm.
or what, right? Isn't that from World's Not Enough?
World's Not when they're in
Yeah,
that
yeah.
where he meets Dr. Jones or whatever,
Right,
right? And they're in
right.
the whatever the mine is. I can't remember what well, it's the oil mine or whatever, isn't it? They're not the
Yeah,
oil
yeah,
mine,
not a
sorry,
prison mine,
but
but like,
he's after Renard, and it's been a while
right.
since we watched that
It's
one. So
the drill and everything.
right,
And I was like, wait, no, that was the movie before. My brain wanted to like pigeonhole that into this film. And I was just like,
that is
something.
funny because I actually couple Brosnan's movies together. I feel like Goldeneye and Tomorrow Never Dies are like almost a set to some degree, just based on his performance and so forth. And then these latter two, his performance is a lot more the same. Like this, the attitude of the character, just the way he carries himself and so forth. They feel like he feels almost a little too confident in the final two, and in the first two he feels a little bit more unsure of himself to some degree. So I'm probably just thinking things, but just in my head, that's how I kind of couple them as these are the first two, and then there's the second two.
I could see that because there is a cockiness,
Mm-hmm.
super duper, like there's the swagger, but it's also you see this crop up with the Craig films of this just very rebellious
Mm-hmm.
kind of tinge of Bond, and it's just like, oh, I don't mind that aspect, but by golly gee, it's sort of just there.
Do you think that this drawing board for this movie, did they have an actual plot, or were they, okay, I want a laser, I want it to be in space, I want an invisible car, I want
I don't know.
I want to somehow get either surfing in this movie or wakeboarding or something. I want to get
they got it
landmines.
Twice.
You do get it twice.
They pulled it from that well twice.
I want an Arctic themed area. I want an ice castle. I think the pitch meeting was just somebody saying all these outlandish things and them saying, all right, yes, we got a budget for that.
Yes. Well, I mean, and that is something that they, have tried to do for movie upon movie upon movie, is always like, oh, let's go somewhere different. Let's try something different. Let's do something that hasn't been done before.
Right.
Okay. The Iceland thing's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
The chase scene in the cars on the ice film, that's pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
In the movie, it's kind of like, it's like, actually, because it's kind of segmented up into two parts, the one where it's out in the open, and then the part where it's in the melting ice palace
whatever hotel
thing, which itself was, I want to say that was starting to be like a more of a 90s thing in like North America and stuff. They were well, no, not like building them there, but just kind of learning about them and sort of thing, because like the closest that I ever got to anything like that was the ice bar. Went to an ice bar.
Ice bars.
Yeah. And that's pretty neat. I will say this though, from what I heard about the ice hotels and stuff, is that it's their rooms are about right above freezing.
Oof.
Yeah, I know, right?
Well,
yeah.
It did make for a neat set piece for sure, though. Like, it was something certainly different, and it does leave its mark on this movie. Like, it's pretty memorable. Well, it's memorable. It's a memorable locale. But I agree. The first half of the car chase is really good, and then once it goes inside, it's just kind of, it's not shot poorly, but it feels claustrophobic and
it's
not
really
interesting. And it's just kind of, it loses some of the pizzazz. Like when they're out on the ice and they're shooting missiles and they're ricocheting off each other and all this, it's like, oh, okay, that's kind of fun, right? Like to think of all Bond basically using every single gadget that the car has ever had for 20 films. It's kind of fun to see that. And
the guy chasing him has his own bunch of gadgets and stuff. So that's cool. Yeah.
It must have been a little bit fresh out there though. With the drop top.
Right. Like I guess they had customized those vehicles, and they had customized the Martin so well that it, when they were first testing it, it drove like it was on asphalt. On the ice, so they had to like retread the tires and stuff like that, because they're like, no, this is a little too good. And then I know during one of the shoots, he actually the stunt driver wrecked the car.
Okay.
And that was pretty, not like a awful wreck, but he hit a chunk of ice real bad, and it just. But thankfully, he didn't sustain too severe of injuries and stuff.
Right. Not like some of these other stunt fellows. We've covered a few of them, taken some pretty bad injuries. That one guy, was it Octopussy, right? The guy that you said that skinned his leg up and stuff. Yeah, and shatter his leg, and pretty horrible.
Like, I think they said it was a full recovery in 6 months. So I mean,
all that for
Octopussy. Oh no.
Anyways, well, at the risk of being as thrown against the wall and hope it sticks ourselves here, because we're all over the place. Why don't we start with, what do you think of that opening sequence? I mean, it's certainly got a lot of action, and they really wanted to get you on the edge of your seat kind of thing. But what did you think of that whole backdrop, North Korea? And
I didn't just mind like the setting of it and stuff. The surfing bit was, I wondered if it's just the Dureco, the the vomit of the 80s and 90s ninja malaise finally reaching its point of
American Ninja 9.
I was thinking
Just
surf
kill me
ninjas.
now.
Surf ninjas at this point.
Well, Surf Ninjas was probably about what 8-9 years removed at least by this point. Well, at least they could have at least put Rob Schneider in one of the wetsuits then. Wasn't he playing a teenager in that? And he was already almost 30 or something.
I mean, Karate Kid guy did it, so
Yeah. Oh,
yeah.
anyways. Okay, yeah, I could see it. I don't really enjoy the whole
Like
surfing bit that
it
much.
it was like whatever. It's fine, but by golly gee, does that seem like a mission set up for a suicide mission?
Yeah.
I
Well, yeah, breaking into North Korea, right? And
just
and
go
no sort of, I mean, they do put up a tracking device at the least, right? So it's not, I guess, purely, I guess they try to, I mean, the helicopter picks him up or whatever and so forth, but were they not tracking him, those two guys at that point? Well, three, I guess, because if you include Bond.
Oh, on like their side?
Well, yeah, once they actually land and then they get in the helicopter, right? They swap spots with the other diamond seller.
Right.
Did they no longer trace them after? I mean, I know the helicopter blows up, but was that the only tracing point for them, or
Evidently.
I guess because he gets captured, I suppose, right? Or they just give up on him. I was under the impression they just gave up on him.
Right. I think that's what we're supposed to take from it is that
Right.
You're like, oh, our hands are clean. We don't have
you
nothing
goofed.
to
Yeah, you goofed and you got
You're
caught.
on your own. Right.
Right. I like the set piece. I don't know if I like it as much as say Tomorrow Never Dies. I think I haven't seen it in a while, but there's a lot of similarities, right? Like in just sort of Bond sneaking in and he's got to do this big job. But this one, they try to show that there's a ripple effect to the one in Tomorrow Never Dies is just a cold opening, right? There's nothing that links it after that point. Whereas this, there's certainly, it's the ripple effect all the way through the rest. Well, seemingly all the way through the rest of the movie.
But yeah, I'll get to that in a moment, I guess. But it's explosive, but there's it just feels like the choreography is really really bad.
Okay.
In a lot of ways, and like the cuts just happen a little too early, so you're like, this is still some very hammy.
Well, there's certainly experience. Some sort of kind of poor green screen when they're on the hovercraft thing. There's a couple of pretty bad shots that really kind of pulls you out a little bit. Like it's very noticeable,
especially for being like 2002.
Yeah, it's quite choppy. If we go back to GoldenEye, it's almost a novelty because you're like, oh, well, that's how all the old Bond movies look like. But by this point, you're kind of thinking, oh, well, they can do a lot of really good CG explosions and stuff at this point. So it does look kind of shady and obviously done on a sound screen. So I think they said most of that. I did listen to Brosnan just for the opening, and he said from the surfing right up until I want to say when he sets up the satellite to get to the helicopter, he said something that was filmed in already 5 different locations just for the first 10 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever. And you're thinking, boy. Oh, wow, that probably is a telltale sign of just how messy this must have been to go from a soundstage to, I forget where he said the beach was, maybe Spain or something.
It could have been. There was Spain was mentioned as a,
yeah,
thanks for filming here.
Something like that. So it might have been a beachfront in Spain where they just put out all of the barbed wire and what have you. But he said it was like 4 or 5 different locations. I thought, oh, geez, that's a lot of effort just for very limited film time. And
right.
But yeah, and it doesn't really give you I mean, it's cohesive enough, right? It doesn't look like it's 5 different places necessarily at the least. At least they got that kind of down. But I thought the idea of that looking like North Korea, to me, I was like, okay, that looks, from all the imagery I'm aware of and having been to the DMZ and so forth, is that's pretty spot on from what I can tell. So I thought they did at least a good job with that sensibility. And when they go through the bell and stuff, I was like, yeah, that's stuff you would find in temples and mountains in Korea. So
Mm.
same as the imagery, right, of the I can't remember what the name of that. I don't think that's also the teikoki, but the 3-color swirl circle. So why is that escaping me? But anyways, like that's all imagery you would see, and they'd have bells like that and ring them just like that. So I was like, did a pretty good job, I thought, for the most part.
Yeah, it looks like a fairly cohesive set.
Yeah.
Doesn't look, it just, outside of just looking really dated in a lot of ways,
Mm-hmm.
it, at least naturally, the natural aspects don't look so bad. It's just,
Mm-hmm.
I guess with how stilted some of the action is, like I don't mind the hover vehicle stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's fine. It's I think part of it's just also how loony the one, well, I guess both really, the main villains, Colonel Moon
Yeah.
with his flamethrower and just
Yeah.
very aggressive demeanor,
Mm.
and his right hand man Zhao gets spiked by diamonds.
Yeah.
And has diamond face for the rest of the movie.
That's his shtick.
That is his shtick.
Yeah.
Sort of. Most of it.
I mean, it's
until about halfway.
At least a look, if nothing else.
Mm.
It certainly has a. I don't know if it's necessarily a good or bad, but it's something. I mean, Bernard was pretty boring, I guess, for somebody that's supposed to be, lost his ability to feel pain.
He can't feel pain.
Right. And it's like, well, he has a bullet in his skull. And it's like he's got just like a tiny little scar, basically.
Just shake
like
him around.
He got nicked when he was shaving his head. And 006 just has kind of like the weird cheek scar thing going on. What am I missing? Well, and then the guys in Tomorrow Never Dies are just like straightforward. It's just like the guy with the blonde hair just kind of looks like a, like your typical heavy guy or whatever in the movies. Doesn't really have anything distinct necessarily. So this is probably the most distinct looking, I guess, out of the Brosnan that I can think of, at least from Brosnan's rogues gallery, I guess.
Yeah, I guess.
I think they were looking for something to tie into some of the classic, I guess, villains.
Mm-hmm.
At least in their thought process,
Maybe.
probably. In their thought process, probably.
Especially with it being the 20th Bond film. So we gotta,
right.
Every big time, big number. Oh, it's the 30th, 40 years, 50 years.
Right. Skyfall was 50 years, and then No Time to Die was the 25th movie. So there's a few things in No Time to Die. Not a ton, but there are definitely a few sort of nods and winks.
Just, yeah. So, I mean, you see it here a lot. I will say this, I don't think it's peppered in, but it's not overly saturated. That or I'm just dumb and missed a bunch of them.
I caught quite a few, and this is the point I wanted to make actually earlier, is I actually appreciate that they wanted to do that, and B, I don't think that they're so much to the point that it distracts you. There are things that you're just like, oh, I recognize that one. Cool. Yeah. That's kind of fun. But it's not to the point of maybe the plot. I guess you could kind of say, oh, it's pulling from this movie and this movie and this movie, I suppose. But the actual items or locales and stuff, or not locales, but what's the word I want? Like, I can't find the word I want. But like an example is when Gustav Graves is in his sort of, that sort of office space he has in the ice hotel, and the floor has that circular shape that looks like a kind of like a Fabergé egg, but that's also like a scene from Diamonds Are Forever has like a set that looks like that as well.
Right.
You're like, oh, that's just kind of a nice little callback, right? Okay, you get it. There's the diamond theme, so it's a perfect little connection. But it wasn't enough where you're like, oh my God, like that's just so distracting.
Right. Yeah, I think it was more winks and nods that weren't like tongue-in-cheek winks and nods outside of it seemed a lot of the Q stuff was that way.
The Q stuff was definitely, And there's quite a few stuff in the queue. You could probably find
shoe
a ton of
knife,
stuff. The only
jetpack.
ones, yeah. I mean, then you got the Octopussy plane right when he walks in.
Right.
You have the Octopussy, like I don't know what you call that, the rope, the climbing rope from the Indian village or whatever. The yeah, like the thing that was climbing up, right? And he was climbing it like it was a, what is the word I'm looking for? Snake charmer.
Yep.
Then obviously the shoe from Russia with Love. What else? There's so many in there.
The jetpack from Thunderball.
The jetpack. I think there's one of the scuba gear things from one of the movies.
It's nice, and it's like
perfect.
okay, you have a nice little cheeky scene, but it doesn't like bleed out into the
no.
Yeah.
If he like started grabbing every single item, like he touches obviously the jetpack and the shoe, but other than that, he doesn't really. They're just nice little trinkets to kind of, oh, I see, I recognize that piece or what have you. And then other than the watch comment.
Right.
Just saying, this is the 20th watch. So, but I don't know. I caught quite a few. I mean, the watch, the laser on the watch is a callback to GoldenEye. Basically like the same watch. And he wears the
good old laser watch.
Yeah, laser watch. Then he uses the breathing, what is that? The breathing receptacle or apparatus, right? Which was from Thunderball.
Right.
Looked exactly the same. One of the things that I noticed right away, and it's only because we recently watched Thunderball. Did you notice when he eats the grape?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, he has to be from Thunderball.
He's being cheeky with that. Yeah, I was kind of.
I thought that was kind of fun. I was like, oh, that's only somebody who's really looking for that would notice that or think of that. I thought that was kind of funny. There's, as you said, there's a few others that are just not coming to mind right away. And maybe as we're talking, they'll pop up. But I definitely remember the grape thing.
Well, I mean, like Halle Berry introduction scene.
Yes, that's true. That was probably one of the more well-known,
right,
or recognized pieces. Yep.
So, as I say, do you want to like shift these gears? Since we did do that opening scene, it bleeds into the the opening credits.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on that?
I seem to remember us talking about this before, and I've flip-flopped. It does not fit Bond whatsoever. Is it a bad song? No, it's surprisingly catchy and kind of sticks in your brain. The lyrics are crap. They don't have anything to do with anything other than to just try to somehow link to the title to some degree. But there's a lot of repetition in the lyrics. There's nothing particularly interesting about the lyrics as a whole. I like the sort of bodies that are heated and then the other ones that are melting and the whole torture thing. Again, Brosnan was talking about that and he was really disappointed because I guess they filmed several days worth or something he said worth of the torture stuff, and it just basically got thrown into the opening sequence and that was it, or the opening credits, and that was it. And I thought, yeah, it fits. It's kind of cool that it's put into the opening sequence, but it would have been neat to see a bit more. So I don't know how I feel on that. I kind of enjoyed that it's only in the credits, but I also thought, if he's right and they did film that much, perhaps seeing a bit more of Bond being captured might have been interesting to see, because it's not something we normally get other than sort of him escaping from a goofy layer or something like that. This was really he's getting messed up here. Right. And Brosnan looks cool with the big beard, and I think he looks really cool actually.
he's what's the dude?
The Big Lebowski.
The Big Lebowski. Got that.
Can you imagine if he went the entire movie with the beard and the hair? I might have enjoyed this movie even like a notch higher, actually. Who set me up? Who set me up in North Korea?
Certainly.
That woman, when he said, thanks for the kiss of life, she'd probably be like, like a giant beard getting in her face. Which she does, but
yeah.
But I mean, if they kind of really played up the beard thing a bit more. It's frozen, when it's frozen when he's in Iceland, frozen icicles and stuff on it. They could have done something with the beard.
Something ridiculous.
I don't know. What do you think?
I kind of like the aspect of it's this sort of hazy effect, because for the most part, yeah, the lyrics, they're repetitious and they're supposed to really point to how Bond is like, oh, he's just shutting everything down to just kind of persevere through this kind of thing, whatever. But yeah, the song is catchy. It to me, it harkens back to something like Duran Duran's View to a Kill, where it doesn't fit, but it's a good song, and I wouldn't say it's a product of its time, because I think not a lot of that style of music was really big during the early aughts.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe in its infancy of becoming more mainstream, perhaps.
So like it may be a harbinger of what's to come, but it just feels like it's something like that, where it's like, it's not bad or anything. It's just
the Death Wave knows his auto tune, because that's the song is completely auto tuned. Like that's Madonna's singing, but it's so abundantly clear that her voice is being adjusted and tweaked, right, to make some of those effects and stuff. But I can see what you mean, though. I think. What do you think about just sort of the torture stuff being kind of only interlaced through that?
Like I said, it like I don't mind the haziness of it, because then you're almost like experiencing it how you'd probably expect Bond would in that sort of situation, where you're being traumatized so much that your brain just goes, okay, all right.
It goes straight to a Madonna, straight to a Madonna techno song.
Right.
I do like when it zooms out and it kind of shows they have just obviously been torturing him for some length of time, and then they put him in that corner. And he kind of like looks up like heaven help me or something, right? Like as he kind of, and he's breathing heavy. I like that shot of I don't know which part of it. It must be near the end of the credits.
And I don't mind the right at the beginning, even though they're CGI scorpions, just the kind of start of it, like, where they're pricking up their tail. I don't know. I just like it's like,
it doesn't bother me. Yeah, it goes with the whole vibe of it is all CG, obviously, so it's fine. Even I assume they're female bodies that are moving around with the ice and the flame and stuff, and it's like, oh, that's kind of a cool, but that theme doesn't really, other than going to Iceland, I guess they went from Cuba, I suppose, but I don't really catch the link, because even as you said, View to a Kill has that as well, right? Like it sort of has a similar hot and cold.
Figured it was just part of the torture, like
maybe
being like scalded with like hot stuff, and then getting dunked into
the cold ice tanks.
Yeah.
Okay, that's fair. I didn't think of it that way.
That's where my brain went with it, at least. So
okay, no, that's fair. That makes sense. I think it's fine. It's certainly not the worst song, but it's, as we said, there's certain bonds. Even Live and Let Die, right? You said, or both of us said, really, it's a catchy tune. It's great, but it doesn't really fit for the movie in a way.
But yeah, so the theme certainly is on the bit of the weaker end for me. Just like all together package sort of thing. It's just kind of like, okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah.
So yeah, where do you want to venture forth from here?
Why don't we kind of just get through most of this plot, and then we'll get to maybe some of the characters. Well, just I think it's maybe a good idea to get through the party horror. Okay, well, and this is where it goes back to the points we've made earlier, just that so much was trying to be crammed in here, right? We have the diamond component, we have this North Korea invading South Korea component, we have basically a 1 versus 1, like this one character that's turned out to be like the antithesis to Bond, essentially. We have a double agent, we have an additional agent.
Is Bond the double agent? Is he the one that gave up information, which just kind of gets dropped by the wayside?
Right. I'm checking out, and then it's like, oh, he's now in Hong Kong. And anyways, yeah. So okay. So Bond escapes. Obviously, he gets traded for, so he can leave. He doesn't think that he should have been traded for. He claims that he never gave up information and nobody believes him, so he goes rogue.
Yeah.
And he stops his heart along the way. Magically stops his heart. Just decides he's going to stop his heart.
I'm going to trick these fools.
he did
Uh,
this before Star Wars Episode 3, and just like, she's lost the will to live, and it's like, yep, Bond's just decided to stop his heart. It just seems like the right thing to do now.
mhm.
I don't know. Were we missing something? Like, it feels like there's a missing scene in there.
He's just that good. He
He can
remembered
just
his training.
trigger cardiac arrest when he feels like it.
Yes. Yes.
because plot points.
Because plot points. Because there is a point of which, towards the end of this movie, I'm going to rail into
Okay.
really badly.
Oh, I'm looking forward to that.
I nearly had an aneurysm because it's such a one-off line, but it's like, how? Anywho, yeah.
I forgot there was one other thing. One of the villains flies out of a window or flies out of an airplane. It was like, oh, Goldfinger. Another callback. So sorry.
Yeah, I don't know which one's worse, the way Goldfinger goes, or
I mean, this one looks a little bit more likely. The one with Goldfinger, like the way he kind of folds up and goes through the. Right. This one, at least, it's not just like this tiny little space. It's a huge gaping hole, and yeah, likely he should have like just flown right out immediately. But it's a Hollywood movie, so it's fine. But at least it wasn't just this tiny little dime-sized window that
right,
something like that. But so anyways, yeah. So Bond escapes. He ends up in Hong Kong. He gets some information because he's looking for Zhao, who he was traded for, and then he's off to Cuba.
Yeah, a little bit in Havana. Get some car culture and like
cigar culture.
Right, the Cuba scenes weren't that bad. There's a little compact bit there, but it's like a rock skipping across the pond.
Right.
It just boop, and then it's gone.
Right.
So it's like, oh, okay, that was
another
deal.
Callback though. Sorry, something just reminded me. The Universal Exports gag. Like Roger Moore used that in a lot of the movies, right? Like, I work for Universal Exports or whatever. It was like his shtick whenever he needed information, which was all the time. Roger Moore was always looking for information. But yeah, so like that was the little short gag of this sort of, there seems to be some sort of history with this what is that character's name? I can't think of that character's name. The old guy with the scars.
I don't remember, honestly. I can't remember. Think they really
so just sort of glazed over.
Introduced him in the movie. He's just kind of
he's just the next piece to move along the plot, kind of thing.
Right.
Yeah. But so anyways, he sends Bond on his way to go to that island, which also is
Dr. Monroe. Yeah,
something like that. I don't recall any twisted looking half human, half bird or animal type creatures, whatever the hell that movie was about.
But I think it was, I don't know. I think it started with an M or something like that, or like Armado, or I don't.
It's not really important to me.
Such a quick thing, but I will say this: this is coming on the heels of the news that I don't quite remember whatever happened. It sort of got shied away since then, but I believe you would remember the news of they've successfully cloned a sheep.
Dolly,
right?
Yeah, I think that was late 90s. I think it was just sometime before this.
Right, but I mean DNA and genetic sequencing, and so like this is one thing I do kind of miss about the goofiness with Bond movies that got sidelined with the Craig stuff, is the willingness to play very fast and loose with science. And I know people will like get apoplectic about that sort of thing, but in the same hand, I think it serves well. Not necessarily in the conspiratorial sense, but I think it serves well if you do these sorts of things. So when people actually have the opportunity to look into them, they're like, no, you can't really just turn Asian people into white people. That's just kind of not how that works.
But in the context of these kind of movies, this kind of stuff happened, right? Like, it's just silliness. I'm sure people looked at this and were like, oh, we're making another character into a white character or whatever.
Mm.
I'm sure there are detractors of that. And personally, I didn't really. Now, of course, I'm looking at this from a very specific way of looking at it, I guess, or however. I can't even. I've lost my words for it. It's frustrating when somebody wants to argue that point. It's like there is at least in the sense of this movie, there is a logical reason why this character is doing that.
Oh yeah, no, I get.
It's not
yeah.
just the fact of, oh, it's because we want a person who can speak English well or whatever, right? Like there actually is a function, and the character even says why they have done
right.
this.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's at least put in the movie.
It's silly, but
it's more of just the fact of like, oh, this is something that was going on, 80s and probably earlier. I'm just not sticking in my head too well about like how, being able to manipulate somebody's DNA to make them
half man, half crocodile.
Right?
Whatever.
Swamp Thing.
Yeah. But, well, look at Jurassic Park, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like manipulating the DNA to bring back dinosaurs. So.
Right. So like this is certainly a very like on the tail end of that time period where that was a big like hoo-ha. That's why I bring up the thing with cloning and stuff, because that was seen as a big deal. Nowadays, that's not really. We don't even. There's no. People don't really seem to care about the warnings of what was that movie Gattaca or whatever. Right, it's like, hey. Right. If you pick your child's, genetic information, what that might do. Right.
It'll turn them into a super soldier.
Evidently. That or you can just let them be some loser janitor who has to sneak onto the spaceship to fly it away.
Well, he was obviously not that much of a loser since he was able to trick the system pretty capably. All it took was broken leg Jude Law. It's a good movie though. That movie is actually it makes you think, like for such a like Hollywood focused type movie. If that movie were lower budget and stuff, it would probably even be more cerebral, right? But it is actually surprisingly well done for what it is. It's funny, we've just completely skipped over Jinx because Jinx is terrible. There's no way around it.
I like Halle Berry, but
I don't mind Halle Berry too, but this is terrible role, bad acting, bad writing.
Halle Berry, like you can feel it. Yes. You can feel she's just having a fun time, which is more power to her. Like it's good that you're not like super uptight, stick up your ass kind of thing, and yeah, she looks like she's at least having fun with it. I don't know if that was quite the case. Maybe not. I don't know.
At least on film.
It looks like she's having fun with it. She's just enjoying the experience. Right. I don't necessarily mind the Jinx character. It's just
it's shoehorned. It doesn't feel natural. It doesn't.
You don't really. Yeah, you don't really like get why she's going after him until it's the NSA.
Well, because Madsen's like, you're going in like for no reason, but you think I'll let the British take over? She's just really shoehorned in, and she, other than her introduction, which is obviously mimicking the Honey Rider scene and is pretty iconic, I guess, right, for being Halle Berry. It's just like her lines are bad, they're delivered poorly, and she had just won an Academy Award like just before this for, I think the movie is Monsters Ball or whatever, and I've never seen the movie, but I've heard and seen a clip or two, and it's like, like obviously it's more of a human drama and stuff, but it's just she went into that stretch of, I don't know, just this phase of she was getting paid lots of money to go in any movie essentially,
right?
Because like when she's in John Wick 3 and she's not in it much, but she's really good in it. Her character is fun to watch, and this she just isn't. She looks clumsy, like when she's supposed to be doing work with a gun, and so she just looks clumsy, like it just doesn't look believable. They just wanted to get her in a cat with the cat suit and bikini, basically. It seems to be the only purpose here.
I'm okay with that.
Well,
but no, that's that.
Barring those points, the character's terrible.
Well, Yeah, like I get that yeah, she comes off as very clumsy, and it's infuriating in certain ways because you're like, okay, you have this character who's pretty much intended to be, walking toe to toe with Bond, but
Right.
they're really clumsy looking doing it.
Right.
Where Bond isn't necessarily clumsy looking doing it.
Right.
It's just, yeah, yeah, yeah.
But anyway, she's on the trail here too, right? She's trying to figure out what's going on with the diamonds and so forth. And she's snuck in there. And I like the idea of where the doctor says, what did he say something to her about changing her appearance or something? And it's like, okay, it's Halle Berry. Like, what would she physically really need to change? Like,
Right.
if they had a different actress come in first or something, and then Halle Berry was revealed in a mask or something, it's like, okay, but it just doesn't feel believable. Asking basically like a supermodel like to change something,
Right.
unless she's running from the law, or like who knows what her story. We don't get a good sense of
explanation, but she marks him.
It just looks funny though. It's just
Right.
kind of silly. But you're right, the Cuba thing just kind of gets skimmed over quick though, right? We get to this point of where he finds Zhao escapes, and that's it. We're off and running to the next thing because Jinx escapes too. And I guess at least there's some intrigue. It's sort of what's going on
CGI.
Yeah, some awful CGI. But it's sort of what's the deal with Jinx at this point? I mean, it doesn't help that the movie posters kind of show, it kind of implies that she's not obviously bad, but the movie's trying to show you, oh, she could be terrible. She could be this. We've seen other bad, women in Bond's life kind of thing, bad villains kind of thing.
I mean, in the dialogue sense, you kind of, that's sort of implied, but
Well, like you said, jumping
away
in Cuba, it's sort of, oh, why didn't she?
Yeah, but she's pulled the gun out on the same guy that Bond's going for. So to me, that's, you already kind of slated it. Oh, at least she may not be like exactly in cahoots with Bond, but their goals line up.
Right.
So.
Right. But then we go from there because Bond gets that what is it, like a necklace off of Zhao?
The bullet with the diamonds in it.
The diamonds in it.
Because that's just something you
again
wear.
Just because.
Right.
You would have thought there would have been maybe the diamonds in the chamber, right? Like where the diamonds were supposed to be part of the reason for the transformation of their look and everything. The diamonds were helping fuel the machinery or somehow. I forget how they explain it, but there's some connection there.
I just thought it was the money. I don't quite.
I thought there was a connection with the diamonds and how they were used to somehow. I don't know, whatever.
The only thing I knew about it was just the chemical composition seemed to be like that of the conflict diamonds in Africa.
Well, that part we know, but that leads Bond back to a London scene, which again we kind of talked about in Skyfall. Is not horribly common to get Bond in London very often, or in England, period. So we get a little bit of a taste of London there when he's on the bridge and finds out that MI6 will only meet him kind of in hiding kind of thing, or which is then kind of reutilized in Skyfall when they get moved to basically the same. So that's kind of cool that they tied that in a little bit later on to show like MI6 has control of these private tunnels and so forth.
Right.
Then we get our luxury car after a tongue thrashing from M, telling him he's not useful until he says one line. She's like, "Oh,"
and then I guess you're useful again. Right. And this is, I guess, where you can definitely see where the seeds are being planted for how the Craig stuff goes.
Right.
For a bit. And people have that whole, this is, Bond is really just an alias that different people take, sort of thing. That theory. And it's just like, okay, quit trying to over hyper connect things. Like, it's a movie. It's a Bond movie. Like, we really don't need,
Well, and if
Would
anything, the Craig movies kind of almost debunk that in a way,
right,
because
right.
they're just essentially a full reboot. So
Mm,
they don't really pay homage really to any of the old movies other than little bits with maybe a car or an item, but not with characters, or it's all fresh, right? It's supposed to be all new. So I don't know when
it's
people are still trying to connect all that stuff. It
here you go.
makes no
I'm laying it
sense.
down right now. It's actually a multiverse. It's the
Oh,
Bond
okay.
multiverse, right?
No, I
Let's just
should have
go
known
that
that.
route. Yeah, totally.
Well, I'm looking forward to seeing yeah, all of the variations of Baron Samedi and what have you.
But
Is that
um,
where Never Say Never Again somehow fits
yes,
into all of
that
this?
is. You
I
will
was in
get your.
Thunderball twice.
You will get your wish. Oh boy. But uh, well, isn't there a scene before that? Yeah, there's a scene before that you
Well,
very much skipped
Gustav
over.
Graves, yeah, when he
Yes, when he's
parachutes down, and
introduced.
there's another callback because that's supposed to be The Spy Who Loved Me, right? With
Mm,
the parachuting and the Union Jack.
mm. Yeah, and parachutes down, gets asked a few questions,
Mm-hmm.
and then Bond goes and tails him over to like some fencing club
Yep.
that this is probably the one thing that sort of tweaks my nipples in the wrong way really badly, and
Okay.
that's Madonna being in this movie.
Mm, yeah, I mean
It,
it's quite small, at least. It's not a really,
and to be fair, like she does it fine.
yeah.
Like she's
There's
fine in it. It's just the
yeah,
fact that I know who she is
just had to squeeze her in there because she
and
did the
had
theme
to
song.
squeeze in the theme song. It just seems a
Yeah.
little too much back scratch, and that sort of thing rubs me the wrong way. But just kind of
Mm-hmm.
playing the part that she does it fine. It's not distracting in how she acts it and stuff.
You're just
But
mad that Paul McCartney wasn't like a henchman or something and live and let die and took like a knife or something.
uh, yeah, as much as I hate the Beatles, I don't wish.
Well, no, just in a film or whatever.
I know, but I'm saying even in film, I don't wish for knife
Can
into Paul
you imagine if
McCartney.
Paul McCartney was like in one of those scenes and he was going to get his finger snapped off by Tiki or something? Just something so stupid, like, or he's getting his palm read in the
Oh,
like just something silly. Like they could have done
uh,
something like that, but
but yeah, this goes from just a like I'm not a like the whole fencing thing. I don't quite get. I don't quite
mm,
understand the rules for it. I don't. It's just something I'm not. I've never really read up on or
mm.
learned much about. But I could say that it goes from zero to psychotic real quickly. Like
Where was Madonna like to put this all to bed like immediately? She just like
she just
walked
kind of like
away.
walked away and then
It was
was
like,
like, oh shit, they've started getting
well,
yeah,
they go
everybody
from
just
fencing eppies to what do they first go with? It's just some sort of
like scimitar or
something like that, right? And then
just a saber of
then you
some
get like
sort.
a katana or whatever that sword he
Yeah.
pulls out, which
Um,
then goes to like those heavy broadswords
mm,
or whatever they are.
like it's kind of goofy in the sense of like the weapon change sort of thing,
Mhm.
and there's certain parts where you're like, oh, that's really clunky. Ooh, that's
Right.
really clunky. Just yeah, the whole thing is just like, what the hell is going on?
You kind of think like Pierce was probably like, I really want to swing a sword.
Something, but
I don't mind this scene. I don't know why. It's just so over the top and
well, but
just so
it makes
silly.
sense once you figure out who Graves is. You're like,
Sure.
okay, that at least you can at least kind of put a bow on it and be like, okay. But when you first see it, what the he goes from just whatever to just foaming
Challenging
at the
Bond
mouth,
randomly. And yeah,
foaming at the mouth, rabid mad.
right.
Who touched in the head angered him.
Right.
Like, good lord.
I mean, it's implied a little bit before that he's kind of off his rocker when the questions are coming from the media, right? And they're saying, It said you don't sleep. What are some of the other questions? I can't remember what they
A
are now,
thrill seeker.
yeah,
kind of
you're
thing,
a
right?
psychotic thrill seeker or something like that. So it's even if you don't know what's coming, at least it's kind of implied like he's just nuts, like in a way. But then of course when you get to read it, like, oh, okay, yeah, now it makes more sense that why he was that crazy, and he was going for broke, right? He wasn't just going for, what did they say, blood from the torso or whatever he says.
Right. Yeah.
But they're
First
going for
strong.
like full on headshots and stuff.
Yeah, they're just going. They're just going to kill.
Oh, there's full like sword thrusts. Those wouldn't be just blood from the stomach. Those would be death. So,
Right. And everybody's just kind of watching, going, they're
yeah.
going.
Well, that's the other thing.
They're...
Nobody intervenes in this, right? And again, is it the idea because Gustav Graves is so financially connected that if you ever did anything, he would destroy your career or something? Is that why they're not stepping in? Is that the idea, or
I guess,
are
like,
they all in on the bit that
yes,
he's somebody else, or
yeah.
But
And
I don't
then
know. I kind of find that it's kind of fun.
it's psychotic.
Yeah.
And then the best thing on that scene was Rosamund Pike's character, Miss Frost.
Yep.
Like, Graves, after this all goes on, he's like, oh, wasn't that great? That was so much fun. And then he's like, come to Iceland, buddy. Well, I got a nice palace to show you.
We'll torch you with my big sky laser.
Right. And then
she say, after I smooth things over with the club or whatever she says.
Right. Well, it's a line right after that. She Graves has, his how would you like personal attendant?
Yep.
Assistant.
Assistant.
And be like, oh, give him the invitation, all that kind of crap. And then Bond's like, something like, well, I expect the pleasure of you in Iceland. And then she's like, you will never have that pleasure.
It's a pleasure you never have.
Yeah.
And it's that look on his face, and he's like, ooh.
Yes, I love that.
It's pretty good. Yeah. Pierce really plays that up well. Like he feels that burn for days.
Yeah, it was a good.
No amount of aloe vera is gonna bring that burn up to snuff at any point. But yeah, that's pretty funny.
It was a good little bit there.
Yeah. No, I think that's fair. And then kind of jump into the ice palace and going to Iceland and all this after Bond kind of gets the okay from M to move on with his mission, because he has
and then
vital information.
Right. And then right before that's when you learn that Frost, Pike's character, that she is working for MI6.
Yes.
And so you're like, oh, okay, cool. Bond will have somebody to lean on.
Right.
While up there. And
to lay with.
Yes, to lay with. Yes.
Yep. And then we get the whole stupid Jinx and Frost and Bond and the whole, what the hell is the Big Bang Theory or whatever?
Big Bang Theory. Oh, I got the thrust of it.
Yeah, not funny at all. Just stupid. It's such a letdown.
Innuendo.
Well, it's such a letdown from the innuendo that came before that with the look on Frost's face and stuff. It's so much more flat. It's just it's not funny. And then you get the stupid line, is it just before that too, with the if you have any ice you can spare or whatever he says about the martini. And yeah, it's just kind of starting to go downhill from there with some of the
why that is, right?
The writing.
It's not just the writing.
No, somebody checked out or something. I don't know.
I was going to say, because that theme song is playing like it's a rave at a dinner party.
I probably purposely mind-numbingly blocked that out.
You can just faintly hear it, and you're like,
is that also one of this director really like that sort of weird stop motion sequence where, do you know what I'm talking about? Where it's like, it's almost like a pause and then it kind of slows down.
Yeah, the slow motion stuff.
Yeah, like it happens with the laser thing. It happens with the car chase. It happens with the nightclub piece, like right before it like comes to the nightclub, it kind of like pauses and then it's like and like zooms down. And it happens several times, and it's just
this is the effect of the Matrix.
Bad. Maybe, hey. Yeah,
Yeah,
maybe. It's just bad though. It is so unnecessary, and it doesn't
right.
add anything to any of the scenes it's in. Maybe the car chase scene to some degree, because it kind of shows from a really high aerial view and down. Maybe that one, but the others are just really bad.
Yeah, it's not. It just doesn't work.
And how does Bond and Jinx, like, how do their eyes not burst out? Everyone else puts on sunglasses when Icarus.
That and Graves, they're
Well,
all
Graves
like
too. He's just got the big smile on his
whatever.
face, but everybody else has sunglasses on. Well, Graves, I could kind of see maybe he doesn't care, right? He's like, oh, well, it goes back to the
I'll
character of
use
him being kind
science
of,
to heal me.
well, yeah, if he can change his face, he could probably remake his eyes or something.
Hmm.
But Bond is just kind of like squints like a little bit, like, oh, that's minor inconvenience.
Well, and here's the thing: it's up in Iceland.
Well, yeah, all that
How
snow, like,
well that, but like I know it's not Greenland, but it's slightly up there,
mhm,
longitudinally speaking.
mhm.
It, I would figure the days and stuff would be a little bit longer or a little bit shorter.
Well, it depends on the season, I guess.
Right. So I'm not expecting, 6 months of light like
Right.
parts of Alaska, but it just seemed kind of weird. It's like, oh yeah, day night cycle, normal, no big deal.
Well, when we get to Iceland at first, isn't it kind of implying that the sun is kind of coming down a bit? Because when he's
Maybe.
driving up in the car, but then
Uh,
he's in the hotel the whole time from that scene, so you
mm,
don't really see the change in day. I suppose it's maybe, yeah, I don't know. Maybe it's just implied that, as you said, the days are shorter, or whatever.
yeah, just you don't really get a good sense of it. But
Mhm.
maybe I'm just thinking that there should be more of a sense of it, and
I
there
don't
shouldn't.
remember. I don't remember there being any specific continuity elsewhere in other places he's been in that
Well,
would
I'm
really
not
imply that it
right.
was
I'm not
one
saying
or the
that
other.
it's like bad continuity. I was
Mhm.
just like, days a little shorter or maybe a little bit longer.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know.
Well,
But
there will be 24 hours with the Icarus, but I still just like the way Brosnan seriously looks at just
it's
like,
just
oh, that light is slightly distracting, just barely, thankfully, while everyone else is just kind
it's
of
like
full
somebody waving a
sunglasses on.
flashlight, and he's like, oh,
So,
all right.
put that off.
Yeah, right.
It's just so silly though. And then, yeah, it leads the whole Iceland part, aside from the car chase scene for me, and the reveal with Graves, the rest of it is all just rubbish. Basically, it's just, oh, we got to get Jinx into the hot tub, basically, and it's just, it's long. Like, it feels like the Iceland sequence is longer than it needs to be. When Cuba was so short, Hong Kong was so short. Even Bond getting captured was relatively short. They really wanted to showcase Iceland for whatever reason.
And that stupid segment with an invisible car,
Yeah,
which that to me is the dumbest thing.
the invisible car.
The invisible car.
Mhm.
It is so dumb because it gets introduced in the most obnoxious setting for it. You're going to tell me that nobody noticed tire tracks
Well, that's
just appearing. Like,
could you be in any
you.
worse a location
Right.
to show that there's tire tracks than on snow?
I mean, at least, when it does get discovered, somebody just kind of, on a snowmobile plows into it. So you're like, oh, okay,
Well,
yeah,
that's kind of funny.
that's like that works. Like, that's
Yeah,
totally fine. But then it's like, all the other times, nobody notices it.
right.
Nobody notices the tire tracks. Nobody accidentally walks into it for an inordinate amount of time. Like,
Yeah.
what is going on with it?
Well, if at least it was a hover car or something. They could have gone all in. Hover car, invisible, who knows what else.
I don't know. Just running on stilts for all I care. It's just such a stupid thing. And then like when at the end of the car chase, Zhao goes to use his
Running bull charge or
running bull, yeah, and he turns invisible. Not only does he turn invisible, Zhao's like, oh my goodness, he's invisible. Where'd he go?
right,
And then he uses the little spikes in the tire to go up the ice and just
right. I don't hate that. I don't know why, but The other parts are pretty goofy until he gets hit with the snowmobile, because he's pulling up slowly to that gate, and
Right.
and there's only shoe prints all over. So I mean, if he retread on a previously made path that a car had driven through, okay, sure, maybe that wouldn't be that noticeable. But otherwise, it's just like, where are all these treads coming from? Like, you would think people would be questioning that.
Right.
They have limited vision. I don't know. They were blinded by the Icarus.
Metal Gear Solid vision going there. Cone
I
vision.
guess so. I'm sleepy. What does he say? I'm so sleepy. Is that what they say? Something like that. Yeah.
Something ridiculous.
Yeah, maybe.
Oh, it's just awful. Yeah, that the random, he at least looks the part. The random henchman, Mr. Kill.
Mr. Kill.
Yeah, you're like, oh, okay, but that absolutely
you don't appreciate his.
I don't appreciate the laser fight.
Yeah.
Like, I was home. I could.
That was their homage to Moonraker.
I could almost see it being more interesting if he used mirrors to try to reflect it off of one another, like some game of Bizarro laser tag. Yeah. Like, that might have been a little bit more interesting. It was just such a.
It certainly has not aged well.
No, it hasn't aged well, and it's almost like reminiscent of the first Resident Evil movie. You know, that kind of
guy he's diving through all the stuff, and then it turns him into a bunch of little meat cubes.
Little cubes, yeah. Or Resident Evil 4 would kind of replicate that later.
Yeah, did Resident Evil come out just before this too? Maybe. Hey,
I know it came out
not too
when I was
far off from this.
Yeah, so it'd have been around the same time.
Somewhere on the yeah. Maybe that was the thing. Lasers were the thing, I guess.
Lasers and DNA.
DNA and Matrix slow motion. Yeah, they should have done the laser fight in slow motion.
Oh yeah, that would actually been at least slow down those machines.
Yeah. Well, it's just ridiculous how fast those lasers and bonds. Like, he's like jabbing in between the lasers. It's like one false move, you should have no arm, man. Like,
right. That's just
like, how did Mr. Kill not lose half a hand, an ear? Like, how come he didn't get sliced?
I don't know.
This way to there, he should have just been sliced right up. It just looks bad, right? It just and then Halle Berry on the random, like, what is that?
It's the torture
yeah
bed.
And it's like, geez, that's just I won't even kind of go there with what it looks like, but it's like, that's obviously somewhat supposed to be, I guess, a Goldfinger reference,
right?
But it's just way more sexualized, and it's no, this whole scene is not good. That's what I say. Let's move on from Iceland. I don't like, other than maybe the reveal. The rest, I'm done with the Iceland stuff.
Okay, so let us run away from Iceland.
Well, as I said, the one thing though is that we get the big double reveal,
and
that which is kind of funny that the idea of a double agent gets reused in Casino Royale, not unknowingly. I know it's somewhat to do with the novel or whatever, but we do get the double agent turn here from Frost. I don't know, how do you feel about that? Like, was that, I don't remember feeling anything. I wasn't like, oh, okay, it just happens, and it wasn't, she's not introduced enough to give any sort of, I don't know, emotion to the switch, really.
Well, I think part of the problem is that she's already, you get her introduced as this very prickly, demeanored character who's already on Gustav's side,
right?
And then it feels like it's just this thrown in there piece. If the scene with M and her had been earlier, I think it would have made more sense,
right?
Somehow splice it in there, maybe right before he is introduced or something, like right after Cuba or something. It might have threw off people's inclinations about her a little bit or whatever. But yeah, her backstabbery is just kind of like whatever.
Right. It's just too thrown in the mix at the last second.
Right. There's already so much loop-de-loop going on here that it's just like, okay.
Right. And it doesn't help that it's the next domino effect of, we just got what's supposed to be the big reveal, really, with Gustav. And then it's like, oh, and by the way, this is also a thing too.
Right.
Like, maybe if it was, or even if it was revealed later on, rather than in that moment. Not that there's a ton of film left, but if it was somehow like they were on the plane and then she revealed her true colors at that point or something. Like Gustav like kind of escaped somehow by himself, in that moment or something like that, where it didn't really implicate her yet. Maybe then it might be a little bit more, but it's just so deflated when it's sort of tied into revealing the main villain, really.
Right.
So this is, it's unfortunate because she's a really good actor, Rosamund Pike. She's actually really, really good. And she's quite young here. So I don't know if she has like a ton of Hollywood experience and stuff at this point, but it's just, it all falls flat.
Yeah. Yeah. About the best scene I can think is where Bond is getting like back out of the area after there's the breach detection, and he's trying to avoid being noticed, and so he's like kissing up on her and stuff, and he's like, you got to make this look convincing and stuff like that.
Oh, right.
And then she's like, are they gone? And he's like, yeah, they've been gone for minutes now or something. That's like the only and she's like, oh, that scene was probably about
oh, you're impossible or something.
Yeah, I think that might have been, I guess my favorite scene with her in it, just because of that nice play between the two kind of thing, and just how like she reacts and stuff, because it's similar to that
the earlier
moment. So it kind of got a similar vibe to it. So
yep, for sure. Yep, I agree.
But
then it goes straight into world domination.
Yeah.
We're going on a plane. We're going to destroy the DMZ. We're going to invade South Korea.
Which, to me, it's like, why don't you just shoot the plane down?
Well, that would be too convenient.
I mean, I know Bond and Jinx jumped on said plane, but so they get on that plane, and Bond and Jinx run after a plane.
Yep. Very
similar to Bond outswimming a submarine.
Only after Michael Madsen says, "Get on that plane."
Yeah, right. Get on the plane.
You follow him. Like he's so, he's good in most of the movies you see him in, but he's just bad in this.
It's awful.
He's got no point to being in this movie. Really, they could have had a nondescript audio box on the wall that could have been like drinks that on the plane.
Falco's Angels.
That would Falco's Angels. Falco's Frequent Flyers. Yeah, like it could have seriously been any other actor, and you just would have been, the fact that it's somebody you might recognize, maybe not in name, but I seen that guy in a Tarantino movie or whatever. Oh, it's the guy from Reservoir Dogs or something. But other than that, there's really nothing to get you excited about the character.
Right.
Really could have, you and I could have done it.
Yeah, pretty much.
They should have brought back a Bond alum maybe to do it or something. Christopher Walken. Get on the plane and stop the laser.
Well, this whole like supercut jump where they try to assassinate him, Graves, as he get on the plane, can't, and then all that sort of crap. That whole mess, and it has this wonderful line, and it just irritates me to no end, because it's just M gets super hyper upset with Falco and the NSA and company because for some reason MI6 evidently left their school books at home and didn't do any sort of studying to realize Miss Frost was on the same fencing team as Colonel Moon, aka Graves. How you miss that big old red flag is beyond me.
Yep.
And it's just such a throwaway line. If you don't like catch it, you're just kind of like, oh, but then like, I didn't know that. Come on.
She makes this error a second time in Casino Royale again. She says something. Remember in Casino Royale, she says something in effect that we should keep tabs on our own people better. Remember when it's revealed that Vesper has betrayed, and she's like, "Oh, we should do a better job.
We should really do a better job of that."
Yeah, well, it's nice to know that this was a reboot, because otherwise you would have learned from your mistake the first time.
We would hope you would learn from your mistakes.
Oh, geez. That's right. That is kind of a throwaway line. That it's like, and what a weird connection, right? To be like a North Korean girl is on the same fencing team as her. It's like, yeah, that's probably going to be a problem somewhere down the line. Why would you not think that something fishy was going on? I don't know. Anyways, so we get the whole plane thing, and it's got the sports cars on it, and I guess which is a callback to earlier in the film, right? He's got that line about sports cars. Doesn't he say something like the decay of Western society or something? He says, and then he's like, "Oh, it sure look like how much you like these cars." Like,
right, hypocrisy of Western hedonism, and
because the cars in North Korea would be 0 to 60 in 45 minutes, maybe, or something. of the 10 cars you could buy. Like,
ouch.
Well, they're not pumping them out. I can put it that way. Anyways, but yeah, it's funny that that hypocrisy is very, very much alive in a dictatorship, right? This is such a horrible place, but they're flying in fresh lobster from the east coast of the United States or something, cognac from France, all this kind of stuff. So, but yeah, so we just get the two cars on there, the random helicopter, and that leads into a knife at a sword fight scene. I don't know what else to call it.
I don't know, and I don't
not
know
until after we meet the generals and stuff, I guess. But
right, yeah, because
another reveal, right?
Yeah, with Colonel Moon's father, who's been in the movie, here and there, the general.
Yeah.
Who I like acting wise. I thought he was, for what little parts he was in. I thought he was pretty good.
Yep, he's decent. I think he's Korean too, actually.
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure on that. I'd have to look at his name again, but pretty sure he kind of looks like an old Korean ajashi to me. So he looks the part. He's stoic, right? He's stoic in the role, and he's fine. Yeah, like he's not overacting or anything.
Well, but he also serves as a good kind of push that they had with like Octopussy and some of the other films, where it's like, oh, they're the quote unquote bad guys, but it's really just this rogue psycho. Right. And he even tries to make amends by putting down his rabid son, but doesn't quite get to do that.
No, he gets the electricity of life shot through him, or whatever, a weird bodysuit that's kind of alluded to several times throughout the movie.
With the power glove,
the superhero I don't know, bodysuit or whatever it is.
Oh man, it's awful.
I'm electricity man. And you get the Star Wars purple lightning as well. You get the
force lightning.
You get the force lightning going on there. They should have just had Palpatine come out like, do it.
Do it.
Release the Icarus. I mean, it's basically a Death Star, essentially, right?
Kind of.
Maybe they were really chiming into Star Wars at this point.
Moonraker wasn't enough.
Yeah. Launch the X-Wing fighters. It's a trap.
But
they should have had Akbar be that Michael Madsen's role. Drinks, got on up. They were off the deep end so bad at this point. They could have done anything.
Well, yeah, because they get onto the plane. The plane Pond goes to put the shot to him, and then random
truck drives by or whatever.
Yeah, random crew member walks into
isn't that like an old movie trope too, right? Of the guy who disappears as soon as the truck drives by or whatever. It's essentially probably the same trope, right?
All right, but he jumps at him because he's coming from an angle and sees that he's doing that, and then Bond shoots one of the windows and it starts sucking people out, and it's wild because then the plane starts degrading, and then it gets hit by the space laser and then doesn't just immediately disintegrate. So
It just
Just the-
punches a big hole through it.
Oh, right. So
This
it's
is
the
after
space.
Jinx has finished her knife fight at this point.
This is kind of going on at the same time.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, actually, you're
Yeah.
right.
She flies the plane for a brief bit.
Yeah.
And then instead of just stabbing her, Frost's character's like, oh, get up, and then I'm going to lead you to wherever, even though you're the one that's flying the plane at the moment.
Well, I guess it's to show is she's just as psychotic or has a death wish too. Just I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it is, yeah. Graves mentions that it's like she'll do anything to be on the winning team.
Oh, right.
Right. Just like, well, you're not really winning much here. You have
No, like
you're kind of hard.
unless she's really willing to die for the cause to get the North Koreans into South Korea, I guess.
I guess.
Like it's the only thing you can really think of.
Yeah, I don't know what winning play that is, other than you have Icarus, which
I don't know. It's a sacrifice play, I guess.
Yeah, I guess. But yeah, then there's that awful fight between those two.
Bond?
And what? No, I mean that was bad too, but
not as bad as the knife and sword fight. It's
right.
bad. Yeah,
it's
really
bad. It's really, really bad.
Yeah.
It's just kind of Halle Berry has that, I don't know what you would call it. Like when they like gymnasts on the horse, they do that little
the pummel horse
handstand sort of thing. And kind
like,
of
are you talking about like the movie Jim Kata?
I have no idea what that is.
I have to show you Jim Kata after. It is basically a martial arts movie with a gymnast, and randomly he's in, I think it's Italy. He's just fighting off thugs in the streets in Italy. And oh yeah, there's just randomly a pummel horse just suddenly in the middle of
nice.
And he's like spinning on it, kicking guys in the face. It's unbelievable. You have to see
Sounds amazing.
Yeah. Richard Norton did the choreography. He's
okay.
Famous, like, well, you know him because he was in what's the one he's in with Jackie Chan? Not Meals on Wheels.
Oh,
he's in one of the ones where he fights Jackie, and he's in Mr. Nice Guy as well. So, but anyways, yeah.
Is he in Gorgeous?
No, he's not in Gorgeous.
No,
he's in Mr. Nice Guy. He's when he's got him tied up. He's got Jackie tied up.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then he's in one in the 80s, and I can't remember which one it is off the top of my head. And he's in like Chuck Norris movies. He's in a lot of martial arts movies and stuff. But he did the choreography for Jim Kata. I have to show you this. It's amazing. It's so bad.
Sounds like a better time than this movie. But
possibly. That's a tough call.
But
twiddling your thumbs might have been more enjoyable than either of them.
But then there's that very, very stilted line because the Art of War is just kind of chilling in this plane.
Yeah.
She thinks his character just stabs Frost in the chest with the book.
Yep.
And this is right after Frost is like, I can read your every move. Read this, bitch.
Yep.
It's so bad. It's really bad.
It's not good. Yeah.
It's so bad.
Yeah, it's so poorly done. And again, such a waste of both of those actresses, right? Like they're both very capable actresses. And I understand they're both not necessarily martial artists or what have you. But to not even have like good line delivery. And some of that is on the actor, but some of that's definitely on the direction and the writing. Right. And it's too bad. You have two, as I said, two very good actors. I'm pretty. Didn't Rosamund Pike also win an Academy Award at some point? Didn't she win for Gone Girl?
But like you said,
I don't. Anyways,
yeah, like you said, she is what, early 20s, like 23,
something 24? Like that. Yeah, she's quite young.
She's fairly young for like that. Doesn't I mean, can't do better, but it's like, come on, like this is. I get you're wearing some goofy ass outfit, but
she is. Yeah. But again, if you're that young, and even if you are a good actor, it does come down to the direction. And you're in a big budget Hollywood movie, right? And you don't want to screw up. Basically, you're going to follow what they tell you to do.
Fair. Yeah.
You don't want to get blacklisted in Hollywood or whatnot. Right. So I'm sure that comes down to some of this.
This is all Lee's fault, Lee.
To some degree, but I'm sure it's just the writing. As we know, this is just a calamity, right? We have to shoehorn all these Bond references and we have to make it campy. Brosnan wrapped it up in one of his things. Like as I was watching, he said something to the effect of, we wanted to make a movie that hit all the marks. It had to be campy, but it had to be realistic, like, in their mind, realistic or fun. It had to be it had to honor the past, but still be something fresh. Like he had this take that as you hear him say it, you're like, yeah, like that's really exactly what this movie is. They tried to do everything to a fault.
Potpourri of poop.
Yeah, well. Anyways, the plane goes down. They escape on a helicopter randomly. We get.
I think they would have been better off trying to escape in the car. How ridiculous it is that they were getting out on the helicopter.
They're both standing up in the rice paddy after the cars.
Yeah,
they're just kind of.
I think they could have. Yeah, just kind of. Bloop. They could have just.
You know, this movie is so crazy enough. Like, why didn't they just skydive without parachutes? Like, why not?
I do like that line by Graves. It's like, oh, there's 2 parachutes. Yeah, there's only one.
In a cocky thing.
I do. Yeah. That was a nice little delivery.
I don't mind the Graves actor. Like there's a few lines that are definitely stunted, but he's definitely hamming it up, and you can tell he's having fun. And again, you could say all you want to be like that's bad and so forth, but the whole movie has that going on,
right?
And he kind of is able to stand out as a result of that, with the goofy lines of what's the line? Remember, he says he's on the bullet car or whatever, right? And he says, it looks like you were a man about to lose control or whatever. And he says something to the effect of, that's
only when you're on the edge do you know who you are under the skin or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah. And that's when Bond's like, I'd just rather not go at all. Or something like he died, living a dream or something like that, chasing a dream or something. I'd just rather not go at all.
Right.
But just Gustav Graves, yeah, all of the lines are just really played up, and so is the when he's in his what's it, Commander Moon or Colonel Moon,
the Colonel or no Colonel's him, it's the General.
General,
yeah,
and whatever his rank is. That actor's also kind of playing it up too, quite a bit. Not as much as Gustav Graves is, but again, he says why. He's basically being a caricature of Bond, making fun of him by acting that way.
Right.
But yeah, and then he's got to go and put on his superhero spacesuit and electrocute some foos.
Oh, stupid.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
What happens to that scientist? I can't remember. Does he get sucked out of the plane?
Yeah, he gets. I think he's like the first one sucked out.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
And
he's kind of in the shadows most of the movie.
Well, yeah, he's in a handful of things, and not only that, but I guess props to him for being super duper quick when told, "Hey, this thing isn't ergonomic." And like 30 seconds later, he's got a damn bodysuit for the dude. He's like, all right, asshole, you don't need a suitcase. Okay, fine. Here's a bodysuit for you, bro. Like,
well, he probably had it in his back pocket because he didn't want to get fired. He's just like, oh, I just happen to have this full suit that fully functions. It can electrocute people.
This is
boy. Isn't it kind of ridiculous that the fail safe of the suit is literally right in the middle of the chest? Oh, I can just push this and you'll electrocute yourself.
Right? Like, what is going on? I don't know.
Like it would have been like, okay, he's electrocuting Bond. Why didn't Bond just grab like a metal pole on the plane or something and like grabbing Gustav so that it would shock him too, or something that at least looked somewhat scientific rather than, oh, there's just randomly a reset button like right in the middle of your chest that'll revert this back to you. Oh, that's convenient.
Yep. Time to meet gravity.
Oh yeah, that line is if that's Bond's last like really good, that's just bad. That's just bad. Such a waste. But
yeah,
I like how half the DMZ probably still got torched and nobody seems to be bothered by that.
Yeah, that's okay.
They're just like, oh yeah, the North Koreans will come in. Like, yeah, they'll reunite now. Yeah, I'm sure
right,
reunification is totally gonna pass at this stage. The funny thing is, just before this movie came out, there was the Sunshine Policy. I can't remember the name of the president at the time that was meeting with Kim Jong-il. And that was in 2000. And that was like some of the first sort of quote unquote peace talks, if you will, to really kind of try to mend some of that the issues and so forth. And then this movie comes out like right after me, like the North Koreans are so terrible. And like, so I don't think this movie did any favors to, I know it's an American viewpoint or what have you, like, what Hollywood's viewpoint of this, but I'm sure it didn't really help matters necessarily to showcase all that. But
Probably not.
Anyways, the movie basically ends at that point, right? It's just pretty
Thank
much over.
merciful God.
Just like, oh, we have all the diamonds. Do we really have to return them? The end. And then we get just like a terrible into credits, basically.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's like kind of abruptly ends.
Right. Which is fine. Like that's like it's not too different than
Thunderball did that too, if I remember. Yeah.
Right. Like, so like, you see that they're all right.
Do you think they thought they were going to move ahead with Pierce on another movie though? Because just, I guess as a side note,
it doesn't seem like it.
It didn't seem like it, right? Like I don't think, because he was just kind of unceremoniously dumped, whatever 2004 or 5 or whatever that was.
Well, because he had been pretty vocal that he wanted to be done with it.
Sure.
Similarly to like Craig, but just kind of whimpered back to doing it.
Similarly to Roger Moore, similarly to Sean Connery.
Evidently, Pierce is the the coolest of the bunch because he's like, no, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'll go do the heist. Yeah, Mamma Mia. No, the one heist
before sunset or something it was called.
No. Where he's stealing
the giant diamond.
No.
Which one?
Paintings.
Oh, Thomas Crown Affair.
Yeah.
But then he did the other one after that. Was that with Woody Harrelson? Or was it like Into the Sunset or something like that?
That one I'm not familiar. I was thinking
he was like he's basically Bond, but he's a jewel thief.
Okay.
I remember being like, it's a watchable Sunday flick or whatever.
Okay.
Like it's a Hollywood fare, but it's fair enough kind of thing. I think Selma Hayek's in it as his girlfriend or something too. Something like that. Yeah.
I mean, he's like, you see things of him now. He outside of his ridiculous Colonel Sanders stash thing he's got going every now and again. He looks like pretty good.
He does. Yeah. He still pops up here and there in a bunch of different things. So
yeah. But yeah, I think he just kind of put his foot down, and this is something, and I mentioned it earlier. It's just, it feels like they're struggling really hard for the 7, 8 years or so of this Brosnan era, really trying to figure out what Bond is in the quote unquote modern world.
Right.
And I think they were probably like, well, this is a good out for it, so we can kind of hit the reset button and do what they did with Craig. So
maybe even though he was vocal about it, he did seem taken aback by the time that they had kind of pushed him out, because it was not necessarily, from what I've read about what happened, he was very cordial about it in the media, from what I could tell, but was pretty hurt by it. Just that maybe he did say the wrong thing at some point, and then it didn't seem like he was actually really ready to pass it on at that point.
It's possible. I don't know. Barbara sounds like she has a massive hard on for Craig, the way she talks about him. So, I mean, she could have just easily been enraptured with like, oh, we've got this guy
right
available.
We can do this. Yeah.
We can just, whatever. Who cares? We got
right. Maybe. So it is too bad. Like, it would have been neat to see with this movie, for most people being such a mess and a train wreck, like what would have that been like to have one more film out of Brosnan, like coming off of a movie of this nature? Because honestly, this movie made a ton of money, ton of money, like over 400 million. Well, probably the marquee 20th Bond movie. Right. There was a lot of build.
Well, I mean, in the world was not enough. Wasn't that bad? So
no, it wasn't bad. It was pretty good.
It was pretty good. In a lot of ways. Plus, you got Sophie Barcel, so it was a pretty good thing. And then, Halle Berry's their own drone, because I mean,
sure, like she was a Hollywood it girl at the moment, and so they had a lot of things that would, at least on paper, sound really good. So yeah, I'm sure people were clamoring to see this and go and kind of support the franchise. And then this came out, and suddenly it's in hibernation again. And
it's on fire.
It was on fire, but
well, I mean, in the bad way. It's like,
but I mean, obviously there was a lot of negative press, because despite making the money and making hand over fist well over their budget, enough for them to think, yeah, it's time to do something different. It'd be interesting, and maybe we can look into that a bit more.
I don't know. I mean, you had that really strong run of games that were coming out and everything. You had Rogue Agent, the GoldenEye movie,
Nightfire, and all those ones that were with Brosnan.
Yeah, like Even the World's Not Enough on the 64 was a pretty darn good one. That and Tomorrow Never Dies on the PS1 was pretty good. Like it was just a very strong media thing. I think MGM just kind of got lost in the weeds doing those other kind of endeavors,
maybe,
and they just sort of kind of what do they call it when you they built wide instead of tall, to borrow a
maybe
what the heck are those games called? Like real-time strat game.
Okay.
So they just kind of fell out from underneath them.
Well, Brosnan seems to, I think a lot of people of the generation that grew up with that era of Bond have a really strong fondness for Brosnan, and probably still do. But Craig, I don't know, like the where Hollywood is at and stuff right now is very different. And so I don't think I've heard people clamor and say, this is my Bond kind of thing, right? Like
not for
generations have grown up. Yeah.
Other than Barbara. Barbara's like the only one.
Well, maybe because it's just ended too, right? Maybe it needs time to simmer. It's just literally ended. So
it may have, but this is also something that's gone on for 15 some odd years.
Sure. But
so you would think that there would still be some fervor for it.
Yeah.
And outside of the first really good step, people really don't seem to, there's not really as much of an oomph to it compared to a lot of the other ones.
And maybe it's just getting lost in the shuffle to some degree with just, again, Hollywood has such a wide range, and with indie film and all this kind of stuff now that can do different types of action. You have those Mission Impossible movies, you have different level. Yeah. Like you have Bourne series, you have different levels of spy movies and stuff now that maybe that's where it gets lost in the shuffle. But anyways, we should probably wrap up this one here.
That is fair. Yes, let's face gravity. So yeah, you want to give this a score there, or do you want me to start us off?
I think you started. No, I don't know if you started off. You chose this movie though, so why don't you start it off?
Okay, that's fair. I'm giving this a 2. I hate this movie. This movie is awful.
Well, two is way higher than 0. So
no, because it's out of 1. It's a 1 to 7. So it is a 2. I do not like this movie. I don't care. It is not like it's not even like offensively bad. It's just a mess. And I don't like messes. I prefer an orderly,
like tidy
boring
little
film. Like Octopussy, like I said with that one, it was not offensive. It was just kind of middling of the road. This, because it tries to go all out and tries to like dot every I, cross every T. Instead, what it does is it dots every T and crosses every I. And it's just like, it's not good.
That's fair. I like that this movie's kind of crappy in a lot of ways. I can still recognize it's not a particularly great film. For me, though, I can sit through it. If it's on, I'll leave it on, kind of thing. And I only kind of focus in on the parts that I enjoy focusing in on. The laser stuff, it's like, okay, whatever, just do something else right while this is on, get to the next scene. And I like the Korea's setting, even though it doesn't really get a ton of attention, just because it's somewhat a modern issue, right? That, and something, I guess, personally, that I have a bit of investment in, maybe more so than the average person, to say like, yeah, that actually matters to me, to see that kind of getting some sort of representation on film in some regard. So I'm going to give this higher than it probably deserves. I'm going to give it a 3.5.
Oof. Okay.
In 2 months' time, I could probably down to a 2. In 2 months' time, I could be up to a 5. So I'm gonna give it 3.5.
All right, fair enough. Fair enough. I mean, I did get that's the same thing I gave Octopussy, so I can't be too I'm gonna be
Judgmental.
disappointed. I'm gonna be disappointed, but I won't be judgmental.
Fair enough. Well, I don't think Octopussy's that good. And you
So,
liked
right.
it more than I did. So
Exactly. There we go. We can have differences. We're allowed.
yeah, we
So,
have far too many similar scores
Similar.
that it's probably a good thing to have a few of these different opinions on a couple of them.
So yeah, so I picked this awful wretch of a thing. You're up, and can I take a guess?
Yeah, of course.
Because we haven't even even batted it. I am gonna just throw it out there. I think you're picking Goldfinger.
Oh, so good. No, I wasn't even at all considering Goldfinger. I was considering a Connery.
Yeah. Okay.
But then I kind of was like, nah, I don't want to do Connery. And
Fair enough,
I was very much considering one of your favorites.
Oh boy.
But I thought, you know what? I want to draw that one out as long as possible. And I almost want to force you to have to pick that movie at some point. So I'm not picking that one. I am actually going with, since we went with Octopussy as my last pick, I am going to pick the other half of that novel.
Oh boy.
That would be The Living Daylights.
Oh, okay. I have to say
the other title of that novel. Sorry.
Yeah. No. I went to grab a pen so I could write down.
So yeah. So I want to go with The Living Daylights.
Really?
Dalton has sat on the sidelines long enough.
He could have sat on there for as long as I cared, but
oh really?
I mean,
Dalton's another one. I wish he had a third film.
You mentioned this before, and yeah, I'm very much of the same mind there. To be honest, is that they do feel like similar movies.
They do.
So,
yeah. And that's why I wish he had a third film to really distinguish. It probably doesn't help that it's the same director and all that, right? So,
right.
But was it the same director for License to Kill? Was it John Glenn again?
I think
did he stop at Living Daylights?
I thought he did that. I thought he did.
Yeah, he probably did the
Moonraker, Octopussy.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he did do the pair. So
the pair.
That probably doesn't help things, right? When you have the same director who's going to have the same vision, basically, and so forth and so forth. So, anyways, The Living Daylights.
Well, all right. Well, next time, Living Daylights. So, yeah. If anybody has any problems with me pooping all over this movie, well,
I think you're gonna have more problems with me giving it a higher score.
Yeah, take it up with Sushi, because it's all his fault.
And I'll redirect you to Taylor, and you can watch Octopussy, and you can just decide why that's a 3.5.
Fight me on it. Okay. Anywho, yeah, that's it. Thanks for listening and all that fun jazz, and we will return.